Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today, we're exploring a world without fathers, a world of virgin births. It's a reproductive strategy that sounds like something from science fiction, but it's a very real phenomenon happening in the animal kingdom, even among complex vertebrates like sharks and giant lizards. This is the world of parthenogenesis. Derived from the Greek for virgin birth, Parthenogenesis is the development of an embryo from an unfertilized egg. No sperm required. This gives rise to offspring that are, in many cases, genetically identical or near identical to their mother. While it's common in insects and other invertebrates, its existence in vertebrates, animals with backbones, presents a captivating biological puzzle. There are two main flavors of this strategy. First is obligate parthenogenesis, where females reproduce exclusively this way. In these species, males are often completely absent. It's the only way their lineage continues. Then there's facultative parthenogenesis, which is arguably even more fascinating. This is when a species that normally reproduces sexually can switch to asexual reproduction, often when males are nowhere to be found. It's a biological plan B. There's also a strange middle ground called gynogenesis, seen in some fish. Here, the egg still needs a sperm cell to kickstart development, but it's like a key that just turns the ignition without getting in the car. The sperm's genetic material is immediately discarded, and the offspring is still a clone of the mother. So how does this cellular magic trick work? Normally, an embryo needs a full diploid set of chromosomes, one set from mom, one from dad. To achieve this on her own, the female has to perform an incredible molecular ballet. One method is called apomixis. Here, the female simply bypasses the normal process of making an egg. Instead of meiosis, which halves the chromosome number, she uses mitosis, which is essentially cloning. The egg cell is a perfect diploid clone of her own cells, and the resulting offspring is a genetically identical copy of its mother. The other, more complex route is automixis. Here, meiosis does happen, producing a haploid egg. But then, diploidy is restored through some ingenious cellular gymnastics. The egg nucleus might fuse with another small cell called a polar body, which is also produced during meiosis. Depending on which polar body it fuses with, the offspring can end up with varying levels of genetic similarity to the mother. This process doesn't create a perfect clone, but a sort of half-clone. This is the most common mechanism in those surprising virgin birth cases we see in zoos. The genetic result is a big increase in homozygosity, meaning the offspring has two identical copies for many of its genes. This is a double-edged sword. It can purge harmful recessive genes from the gene pool, but it can also lead to inbreeding depression, reducing the overall fitness of the offspring. Let's take a tour of the incredible animals that have mastered this strategy, starting with fish. The very first case of all-female reproduction in a vertebrate was described back in 1932 in the Amazon Molly, but things got really exciting with sharks. In 2007, a female hammerhead shark in a Nebraska zoo, who hadn't seen a male in 3 years, gave birth to a pup. DNA analysis confirmed it, a virgin birth. Since then, it's been documented in blacktip sharks, zebra sharks, and others. The most stunning discovery was in the wild, with the critically endangered small-toothed sawfish. Scientists found several individuals that were the product of parthenogenesis, suggesting this might be a last-ditch effort to survive when mates are incredibly scarce. Moving to amphibians, parthenogenesis is often tied to ancient hybridization. All known naturally parthenogenetic amphibians are the descendants of crosses between two different species. For example, unisexual salamanders of the genus Ambystoma are all female lineages that have persisted for millions of years. They practice something called kleptogenesis, or sperm theft. They need sperm from males of related species to trigger egg development, but they usually just discard the male's genome. Occasionally, though, they might incorporate some of his DNA, which adds a bit of genetic diversity to their lineage. But the true champions of parthenogenesis are the reptiles. There are about 50 species of lizards and at least one snake that are obligate parthenogens. The most famous are the whiptail lizards of the American Southwest. These are all female species that arose from the hybridization of two sexual species. They reproduce clonally, creating daughters identical to their mothers. But strangely, they still engage in mating behavior. One female will mount another in what's called pseudocopulation, a behavior that seems necessary to trigger ovulation. Then there's the heavyweight champion, the Komodo dragon. In 2006, a female at a UK zoo who had been isolated for years laid a clutch of viable eggs. Genetic tests confirmed it was parthenogenesis. And here's the wild part. Because of their ZW sex determination system, all the parthenogenetic offspring were male. This means, theoretically, a single female could wash up on an island, give birth to sons, and then mate with them to establish a brand new, sexually reproducing population. It's an incredible colonization toolkit. Birds are the next stop, where parthenogenesis is much rarer. For years, reports of virgin births in turkeys and chickens were met with skepticism, but it was eventually confirmed. Some female turkeys, isolated from males, can lay unfertilized eggs that develop into viable male offspring. But the most dramatic recent example came in 2021 from the San Diego Zoo. Scientists announced that 2 California condor chicks had been produced via parthenogenesis. This was shocking because the mothers were housed with fertile males. This tells us that the absence of a mate isn't always the trigger, suggesting this ability might be more widespread, just very infrequent, in the bird world. So what's the evolutionary calculation here? Why do it? The biggest advantage is reproductive assurance. If you can't find a mate, you can still have offspring. This is huge for species with low populations or for individuals who get isolated. It also allows for rapid population growth. If every individual is a female who can reproduce, your population can explode in size, which is great for colonizing new habitats. And if you have a genotype that is perfectly adapted to a stable environment, parthenogenesis passes it on, intact, to the next generation. But there are major downsides. The number one disadvantage is the lack of genetic diversity. A genetically uniform population is incredibly vulnerable. A new disease or a change in the environment could wipe out the entire lineage. Without the genetic shuffling of sex, harmful mutations also accumulate over generations, a process called Muller's ratchet, which can lead to a decline in fitness. So where do we see this strategy thrive? Often in disturbed habitats, on the fringes of a species range, or at high altitudes, places that are challenging for their sexual relatives. The leading idea is that it's an adaptation to mate limitation. This seems to be the case for those captive sharks and snakes, and for the wild sawfish. But if you've been listening closely, you might have noticed a major group is missing: mammals. Why are there no natural virgin births in mammals? The answer lies in a phenomenon called genomic imprinting. In mammals, a small number of critical genes are imprinted or stamped based on which parent they came from. Some genes are only active if they come from the father, and others are only active if they come from the mother. For a healthy embryo to develop, especially the placenta, you need both sets of active genes. A parthenogenetic embryo would have 2 maternal sets of chromosomes, and would therefore lack the essential paternal gene activity. This leads to developmental failure. Scientists have managed to create parthenogenetic mice in the lab by manipulating these genes, but it highlights the powerful natural barrier that prevents it from happening in the wild. The science of parthenogenesis is a testament to life's incredible ingenuity. From all female lizard species that clone themselves, to sharks giving birth in isolation, to condors surprising their keepers, these virgin births challenge our understanding of reproduction. It's a powerful evolutionary strategy, offering a solution when mates are scarce, but it comes with the ultimate risk of genetic uniformity. As our genetic tools get even more powerful, we are bound to uncover more examples of this extraordinary phenomenon, further proving that in the grand story of evolution, life always finds a way.